I want to be just frank, direct, honest. The shooter is responsible for the shooting. James Hodgkinson was responsible for the shooting. Floyd Lee Corkins was responsible for the shooting. Wesley Routh, responsible for the shooting, or Ryan Wesley Routh. They've always got three names, these shooters, don't they? Even the last kid who tried to kill Donald Trump a couple months ago, they used his three names. Why is that? I have no idea. They're responsible for their actions. But I don't think you can distract from the fact that the left has been preying on crazy people. MSNBC, on a routine and regular and daily basis, compares Donald Trump to the Nazis, to Hitler. The Democrats say he's a threat to democracy. Listen, we know it is a factual statement that Floyd Lee Corkins went to the Family Research Center and attempted a mass assassination after hearing that they were anti-gay and a hate group from the Southern Poverty Law Center, as well as hearing the left attack the Family Research Council. We know for certain James Lee Hodgkinson was inspired to commit his mass assassination attempt of Republican members of Congress from his regular ingesting hate on MSNBC that the Republicans were going to kill people by repealing Obamacare. We know this. We know for certain that this guy was a regular ingester of left-wing rhetoric that Donald Trump's the second coming of Hitler. People are going to die if Donald Trump becomes president. He's a threat to democracy. He literally tweeted, democracy's on the ballot. We got to defend the democracy. Where did that talking point come from? It came from the Democrats. Where was it amplified? MSNBC. Crazy people do crazy things, and it is a call for people to be responsible about what they say. People wish to be irresponsible in what they say. On the left and the right, by the way. No excuses here on the right. The crazy rhetoric on the right that people sometimes get. The shooter's responsible. But we shouldn't shy away from pointing out that the shooters, they're all insane people. Sane people do not try to mass assassinate Republican members of Congress. Sane people do not try to assassinate former presidents who are running for president again. Sane people do not do that. Deeply disturbed individuals do. And when those deeply disturbed individuals are watching MSNBC, a division of Comcast, on a daily basis, and they hear that Donald Trump is the second coming of Hitler, we must do everything possible to stop him. Democracy is on the ballot. If he becomes president, he's going to be an authoritarian. He's going to be a tyrant. We're never going to get him out of office. That's the stuff you hear on a regular basis on MSNBC. What do you think crazy people are going to do? It's why even some of you, I get in fights with some of you because I try to tell you the truth and you don't want to hear the truth. You're convinced I'm the liar because some of you are being preyed upon by the manipulative liars of the right. And it's whipping you into a frenzy. Look at the people who are convinced this affidavit nonsense of some supposed whistleblower saying Kamala Harris got easily predictable questions from ABC News in advance, and you believe it. You believe it. You see the scam affidavit online. You're convinced it's true. And you know the funny thing, I was thinking about this. I thought about putting up my own affidavit, pretending to be from the guy, saying, look, no, I've got an affidavit here. But you know what? None of you would believe me because I've been dismissive of it, and you want to believe the lie. People on the left and the right are going crazy in their rhetorical stances. People on the left and the right are going crazy and believing stuff. The difference is no one on the right, to my knowledge, has been induced by the rhetoric on the right to try to go kill a president of the United States. The left is violent, and there is a historic pattern of violence in the left. Mass killings on this planet by governments come from left-wing enterprises devoid of God, convinced that they're actually building a utopia, getting the bad people out of the way. When you have commentators on MSNBC talking about how it's not just Donald Trump, it's his deplorable MAGA supporters who are as bad as him, bad things are going to happen. And there's no incentive on the left to turn down the rhetoric, and here's why they can't. Those people on MSNBC who think Donald Trump is the second coming of Hitler, they actually believe it. They actually believe it. They're not going to tone down their rhetoric because they believe their rhetoric. They're not actually trying to incite. They're trying to warn because they really believe Donald Trump is the second coming of Hitler. They themselves have been taken over by this madness and this hatred of another person. It's going to continue to get worse. The country is at a psychological breaking point with this stuff. And people on the left and the grifters on the right have no incentive to back down. You know, the most frustrating part about all of this is I actually believe a lot of the people on the right peddling their nonsense, they don't believe it. They're just making money off of you. The people on the left on MSNBC, they really do believe Donald Trump's a threat to democracy. They really do believe he's an authoritarian. They don't even recognize their own authoritarian tendencies. So you got a bunch of grifters on the right telling you incendiary stuff to drive you to crazy. You got a bunch of people on the left driving everyone to crazy, and they actually believe the crazy nonsense they're saying by and large. These are dangerous times. And it's wild to me how many people on the left and the right want to descend into conspiracy theory. I'm telling you, before the sun sets today, someone who is knowingly or unknowingly paid by the Russians is going to settle on the idea that the Ukrainians were behind this, because this man was a massive, massive supporter of defending Ukraine. But when you have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders saying democracy's on the ballot, we have to save America, we got to do everything we can to stop Donald Trump. You know, if you're telling people that this is the second coming of Hitler, you know how all the fantasies that have ever been written or explored about time travelers who get to go back and kill baby Hitler? And all you've got these entire hypotheticals about, if you had the ability, would you go back and kill baby Hitler? And a lot of people will tell you the right answer is no. Actually, the right answer is yes. Yes, you would go back and stop Adolf Hitler if you had the opportunity. And for years, people have seeded these conversations. And now here comes the media, MSNBC in particular, telling you he is the second coming of Hitler. We are in the final stages before the rise of the Third Reich, and Donald Trump is leading it. And Donald Trump is going to be an authoritarian. And if he gets elected, don't you believe he'll stay there? I actually know a reporter for a left-wing news outlet who I like very much. We just vehemently disagree on everything. And he is absolutely convinced, he is epistemically convinced, that if Donald Trump gets reelected, he'll never leave. He is convinced of it. There's no basis for him to be convinced of it, but he's convinced of it. He says, look at January 6th, look at January 6th. January 6th broke a lot of people. You got to blame the people who do the violence. But I just don't think you can be dismissive of the array of crazy rhetoric out there that is inducing people to become violent. It is irresponsible rhetoric, and you and I recognize it as irresponsible rhetoric. But the people on the left believe the rhetoric. So how do you convince people who believe what they're saying to not say it? You can't. And that's why they can be dismissive of their own rhetoric. That's why they can be dismissive of those of us on the right saying you're inducing people to do this, because they don't believe it. They think what they're saying is true, and how can the truth induce someone to do something like that? And then they focus on, for example, J.D. Vance and the Springfield story and the pets being eaten. You know, there's still no evidence of people's pets being stolen from Springfield, Ohio. One of my listeners is a sheriff's deputy in that county. I verified his identity. He emailed me and he said, it is simply not true that the Haitians are stealing people's pets in Springfield, Ohio. He said, but what is true is they're taking the geese and the ducks out of the parks. Get calls about it. What is true is they're overwhelming the healthcare system. What is true is they're forcing locals, natives of Springfield, Ohio, into homelessness because the landlords are able to rent to the Haitians outside of Section 8 housing, and that's displacing locals. This is what is true is there a societal fallout. The pets aren't being stolen and eaten. But all the other stuff people are talking about is real, and he was expressing his frustration that the lie is the dogs and cats. And, you know, with that have come a bunch of crazy people sending bomb threats to City Hall, sending bomb threats to the schools. I don't know whether it's people on the left or the right doing it, but the incendiary rhetoric we're hearing about Springfield, Ohio has impacted crazy people who are calling in bomb threats, malicious people. Part of me suspects in more than one case, maybe it's someone who hates Donald Trump doing it, knowing the media will blame Donald Trump. Doesn't matter. Whoever is doing it is responsible for the actions, but I got to say, all of the crazy and outlandish rhetoric out there doesn't help things. It just riles people up. And there are so many truthful things on which we could focus, so many truthful things, real things that actually do matter. And they just kind of fall by the wayside, which is a shame. They fall by the wayside people don't pay attention to them. And in the process, people get distracted by the lie and don't hear the truth. And the truth of the matter is that when you're saying Donald Trump is an existential threat, when you're saying that Donald Trump is the second coming of Hitler, well, you know what? People are going to act on it. When you say that you got people eating house pets in Springfield, Ohio, stealing the pets, don't be surprised when crazy people show up there and do crazy things as well. Our words do matter, even as the crazy people deserve responsibility for their own actions.